O kings, his jokings and frank talks were pleasing but beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as O son of Pritha, O friend, O son of the Kuru dynasty, and all such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed.
Saya sanatana vikathana bhojanadesh ekyadvayasya ritavani.
Hi.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hello, Shavin. Yes, you can continue to do translation of text 19.
Thank you. Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit and loiter together, and at the time of advertising oneself for acts of chivalry, sometimes if there was any irregularity, I used to reproach him by saying, "My friend, you are very truthful, even in those hours when his value was minimized. He, being the supreme soul, used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son."
Soham nipendra rahita purushottamena sakhya priyena shurada hridayena shanya advanyurukrama parigraham angarakshan gopera sadphirabaleva vinirjitosmi.
O Emperor, O Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dearmost well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. In his absence, I have defeated a number of infidel cowherd men while I was guarding the bodies of all the wives of Krishna.
Tadvedhanustaiṣavasaratho hayaste soham rathi nripatayo yata namanti sarvam kshanena tadabhudasadishariktam basmanhutam kuhakaradam evoktam muslam.
I had the very same Ganjiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot, drawn by the same horses, and I used them as the same Arjuna, to whom all the kings offered their due respect. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them, at a moment's notice, have become null and void. It is exactly like clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with the magic wand or sowing seeds on a barren land.
Rajam Swayanupurshtanam Suradhamna Suratpure Viprashapa Vimudhanam Nighnatamushtivirmitha Varuni Madiram Pitva Madonmathita Chetasam Ajanatamivanyonyam Chatu Panchavasheshita.
O King, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dvaraka, I will inform you that all of them were cursed by the Brahmanas, and as a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now, all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone.
Prayene tat bhagavata Ishvarasya vicheshtitam Mitho nignanti bhutani Bhavayanti chayanmitha.
Factually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other times they protect one another.
Jalokasam jale yadvan Mahanto dyantaniyasa Durbalan balino rajan Mahanto balino mitha Evam balishtirya dubir Mahadvirataran itaran vibhu yadunyadu viranyonyam bhubharan sanjaharaha.
Okay, as in the ocean, the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to lighten the burden of the earth, has engaged the stronger Yadu to kill the weaker and the bigger Yadu to kill the smaller.
Deshakalarthayuktani hrittapopashamanti cha haranti smarataschitam govinda vihitani me.
Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space.
Sutta uvacha evam chintayato jishnu Krishna pada saroruham sohardena gadena shanta sidvimalamati.
Sutta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instructions of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination.
Vasudevanghrahyanungya paribramita samhasa bhaktya nirmatita shesha kashaya dishanurjuna.
Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided.
Geetam bhagavata jnanam yattat sangramamurdhani kala karma tamoruddham punaratyagamat prabhu.
Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case, and again he became lord of his senses.
Vishoko brahma sampatya sanchina dvaita samshaya nina prakriti nirgunyat alingatvada sambhava.
Okay. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubt of duality was completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three models of material nature and was placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form.
Nishamya Bhagavan Margam Samsthamya Dukulasya Cha Swapathaya Matim Chakre Nivratma Yudhishtira. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the wonderful recitations, dear Avani and Shavin.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
That
thank
was
you.
very nice. Okay. So, Mataji, am I co-host now?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yes, you are the host now.
Okay, thank you. One. All can see the screen, I guess.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we will start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtati Yam Pravrajanda Manupe Tomapeta Krutyam Dvaipayano Virahta Taraha Ava Putreti Tanmayatayo Tarvo Vinedustam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Muniman Bosne. So today we are going to read the 27th verse from 15th chapter of the first canto. So we'll start. Deshakalartha yuktani rittapopashamani cha haranti smaratas govinda bhitani me. It's a long purport as well. And we'll go through that. So Arjuna is saying here that, translation by Srila Prabhupada, Arjuna is saying here that now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. So what I am thinking is, I will read the first paragraph, and then we will discuss little bit, and then someone else can read the next paragraph, and then we will discuss, and that's how we will continue. So that it will be little bit more interaction, and at least I will be able to hear other devotees' voice as well, if I can't see their face. So let's start. Herein, Arjun refers to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjun alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historic epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, those who are worthless descendants of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and others higher sections of Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjun on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people when Arjun was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence. He wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour. So, what are the thoughts? Can someone give their thoughts and their meditation on this particular paragraph? Who can speak? So yeah, we have lot of devotees here. Or shall I pick the name and then you can give some insight on this? I'm sure you all have studied Bhagavad Gita at good depth. Are there any questions? Okay, no errors. It was nice recitation. So, what are the thoughts in this first paragraph? Okay, this particular verse and the purport is specifically chosen by Prabhupada and many other devotees during on the time of Mokshada Ekadashi, which is Gita Jayanti, because the emphasis on the Gita, which is spoken by the Lord himself, is here in this particular purport. And that is why a lot of times on the occasion of Gita Jayanti, many senior devotees, they choose this verse and go through the purport and meditate on that. And when I saw the verse number, I thought, why not? We will do the same, going through the discussions and meditating on Bhagavad Gita. So that's the reason I'm requesting that please unmute yourself and speak about this. There can be comments, there can be additions, some questions, your own understanding, can be anything. And so who would like to speak something? No one? I haven't heard any sound yet, so.
I can read, Prabhuji, if no one's literally there.
Yes, Sandaji, please do. Because
Shall I
otherwise
start?
I keep talking almost the whole hour. And
No,
then,
no, no.
Yeah.
So shall I start reading from herein?
Yes, please do read. We have read it, but yes, please do read and then give your inputs. We would like to hear from you as well, what you think, and then I will give mine, and that's how we will have a bit more interactive class. So please do.
Okay. Herein Arjuna refers to the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left himself behind. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but for also all time and all inlands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. So I think it means,
yes,
when we read Bhagavad Gita, we try to understand and then we try to follow it, whatever we can, not every word or every chapter or verses, but whatever our understanding is, we try and follow it. Like we are really fallen souls.
Yeah, you're right, Madaji. There is one more thing, which is an implicit statement here, and by our Acharya, is that the Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone. That means it is for all of us. Bhagavad Gita is for every single human being on this earth, but also for all time in all lands. So what does that mean? It's a timeless wisdom. It's a perfection in every perspective anyone can think of, right? Mataji?
Sorry.
Yes, it's
Yes,
universal.
yeah, of course.
It's universal.
Yes, exactly. Universal and for all time and in all lands. So we can see that. That's the reason if we keep meditating on these purports, what Prabhupada has given, because it's a meditation on Bhagavad Gita. And now we are in Bhagavatam discussions. So meditation on Bhagavad Gita should be there because it's the base, it's a crest jewel of Upanishad. What is Upanishad? Upana Vishadam. That means Vishad means to mention, Upana means to someone in the mood of teaching. Upana means who is somebody sitting down. Yeah. So who sits down and who sits up? Who sits on the Vyasasana is the spiritual master, is a teacher. And teacher is telling something to whom? To his disciples, to his students. And Bhagavad Gita, and here we can see in the picture of Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna is sitting down and Lord is explaining this eternal science of Bhagavad Gita. And that is why It is coming from the Supreme Lord and not from any sage. And that is why this is the topmost Upanishad, the highest Upanishad anyone can think of. And that's the reason it is written here that not benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and in all lands. Yes, sorry, Jyoti Mataji, you go ahead and you can start reading other parts.
Prabhuji, can I say something? Like I
Yes.
know I'm no knowledge in this, but I heard in Prabhupada lecture, and Prabhupada said that because Bhagavad Gita will give us all directions as well, and because Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada said that is the sound produced and vibrated by Krishna personally. So we should all take it, each and every word of Bhagavad Gita seriously.
Yes.
And try to imply in our life as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. That was very, very important, very valuable. Thank you very much for your inputs, Mataji. Jyoti Mataji, you can continue.
Yes, Prabhuji. Where did I stop? The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and the Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharat, which was specially prepared for the less intelligent class. So, Prabhuji, I mean, I would count that this is the time that the intelligent class is here. Not us particularly, but the millennium, the generation that we try and read, we try and follow, but yet we sometimes, or many times, we fail, and we try to reread again.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes, yes. Yeah. So it is put within the study of a great historical epic Mahabharata. It is in this context. Prabhupada is explaining this. I'll give you the background behind this. What happened is when, if you read Upanishad or Sukta or the Vedic language, the grammar, the chanda, everything, it's fairly complex. It's just the simple first verse, the invocation of Isopnishad, Om Purnamidha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Evavashishyate. So if we don't have a right background and the right austerities and the right understanding of what is that Purnatvam, the person will be completely bewildered. And that is the language of Upanishads. If you take any language, any verse from Upanishad, it's fairly complex. And the reason behind that is, it is now, if we see the types of Upanishad, there is Krishna Upanishad and there is Shukla Upanishad. The Shukla Upanishad is coming mainly from the Yajnavalkya Rishi, and Krishna Upanishad is coming from even Vasishtha and his guru and everyone. So Taittiriya Upanishad is a Krishna Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad is a Shukla Upanishad. Shukla means white, Krishna means black. It's a long story. We won't be able to finish today's purport if we go through that. And then accordingly, the different sections of the day, different Upanishads are recited, the yajna or the fire sacrifice is conducted accordingly. So it's a complex process. A person who is very bodily attached, very intensely attached to the sense enjoyment, it is very difficult for them. Once Bhakti Charu Maharaj was explaining that, and he said that Ashta Chakra, the 8 chakras in our body, the person who has very high sense enjoyment propensities, their kundalini, their consciousness never rises. It remains at the base chakra, the lowermost chakra called Muladhara chakra. And then comes the Manipur chakra, Anahata chakra, Vishuddha chakra, and there are other chakras in Swadhisthana chakra and all that. So when the person has very high propensity for sense enjoyment, and obviously when the consciousness remains at the base chakra, the intelligence gets bewildered. And that is the reason Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata in the form of the story, which is a very fascinating part here. That Mahabharata is also, when you read, that's more than 100,000 verses. Mahabharata gives a moral code of conduct, ethical code of conduct, religious code of conduct. But unless and until it comes from the Guru Parampara, we won't get the devotional code of conduct from Mahabharata. It's the same verse, but it needs to be explained by a devotee. And then only the person will get the right understanding of Mahabharata. So Mahabharata has lot of hidden meanings as well, and that is called Guhya Bhashya. So first, as it is when somebody reads Mahabharata, that is Shabda Bhashya. When somebody reads Mahabharata with high intellect and with in-depth study and lot of churning with that, they get a lot of hidden meanings from Mahabharata, Kautilya Shastra and many more. So that is called Guhya Bhashya. And then when it comes to from the devotee, when that devotee explains Mahabharata, then it comes to the Samadhi Bhashya, which is the devotional code of conduct. And that is Bhakti Marga. To get that understanding, your consciousness should be very elevated. And that is why the austerities, the penances, the requirement for the right attitude, approach, and the discipline was very, very crucial in our earlier ages. In Kali Yuga, as we know, 8 hours of sincere work in office is also quite difficult. So those austerities, penances, and everything is out of the window anyway. So that's the reason it is written here that yes, Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for less intelligent class. So practically, I think most of the people on the earth comes in this category. Because there are hardly any Brahmanas, any Kshatriyas, because today's wars, we see that the wars are not conducted or as per the moral code of conduct. Somebody sitting somewhere in the room using the drone and killing hundreds of people, that's not war. That's just the cunning mentality. There is no chivalry. War has to have certain proper code of conduct, and that is Kshatriyata. Kshatrayate iti, that is Kshatriya, means who can protect the boundaries, the land. So that's what Kshatriya means. And that's the reason this particular statement is. I think I'm talking a bit too much. Jyoti Mataji, you please continue. Otherwise, it will be like me talking too much. So yes, the problem which arose.
The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Again, after the departure of the Lord from the vision of earthly people, when Arjuna was face to face with being vanquished in his acquired power and prominence, he wanted again to remember the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, just to teach all concerned that the Bhagavad Gita can be consulted in all critical times, not only for the solace from all kinds of mental agonies, but also for the way out of great entanglements which may embarrass one in some critical hour.
Thank you. Yes, what are your thoughts? Means again, there is a lot to absorb from. Yeah. So
Prabhuji, it says that, in any day, any time, in any problems, happiness or sadness, if you read Bhagavad Gita and try to follow, there are answers in there for all of us.
Brilliant. Excellent. That was like a statement of the day. Thank you. So yeah. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjun, so as Jyoti Mataji said, that we have so many doubts, problems, and everything. So what Bhagavad Gita is teaching us is the most important point of being an observer. Bird eye view is the one which Bhagavad Gita is teaching us here. What is that bird eye view? That we and the Supreme Lord, we are eternally connected. And when there is the word eternal comes, that means all those petty problems which are temporary, we think, okay, that will go away. We don't have to worry too much about these small problems. And that's the first thing which comes in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita itself. Yeah. Which is that yam hina vyatente te purusham purusharshava samadukha sukha samadukha sukham dhiram somrutvaya kalpate. The person who can look at the miseries and happiness with an equal vision. That's what the Lord is saying here. So thank you, Jyoti Mataji. That was wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you,
So,
Prabhuji.
thank you. Who is the volunteer for the next paragraph? No one? Just for reading also, there is no volunteer?
I'm happy to read.
Yes, please go ahead.
The merciful Lord left behind him the great teachings of the Bhagavad Gita so that one can take the instructions of the Lord even when he is not visible to the material eyesight. Material senses cannot have any estimation of the Supreme Lord, but by his inconceivable power, the Lord can incarnate himself to the sense perception of the conditioned souls in a suitable manner through the agency of matter, which is also another form of the Lord's manifested energy. Thus, the Bhagavad Gita, or any authentic scriptural sound representation of the Lord, is also the incarnation of the Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord.
Great, thank you. Do you have anything to realization? What do you think? What are your thoughts, Madhuri?
Yeah, I think it says that well, though we can't see the Lord himself, he is there with us as the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam guiding us. And as we read through this and as we try and understand, we get the guidance, or it reveals itself to us.
Yes, excellent, very nice. Thank you very much. So, what Prabhupada talks about this particular aspect here is, he says we have no knowledge of Krishna, but he's so merciful that he descends as Archa Avatar, Archa Vigraha, or the deities, and accepts our love and service and reciprocates. Devotee can see the Lord and interact with the Lord if we have purified consciousness. And how to purify the consciousness is by following the Yoga Dharma, that is chanting of the holy name of the Lord, and reading the scriptures, so that our consciousness gets purified. It is forbidden to think that deity is a matter, because that is the sign of lower consciousness. Let's go to the verse from the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord confirms that all his energies, that's the one. So what is the verse here? Who would like to chant this verse? It's a quite famous verse. So,
can I do, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
भूमिरापुर्नलो वायो खम्मनो बुद्धिरेव च अहंकारिति अम्मे बिना प्रकृतिरिष्ठधा.
Would you like to read the translation, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu. No problem. Translation: Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Altogether, these eight constitute my separate material energies.
Yes, thank you. So this means what we see as matter is also Lord's separated energy. So our mind, intelligence, and false ego is also a gift given by the Lord. And when somebody gives a gift, there is a purpose. And how to use that gift and what is the reason for giving the gift, there is a purpose behind it. And that because that belongs to Him, actually. And He has given it to us with the purpose. And that's what, how that happens. Narad Pancharatra gives this very beautiful verse, Vishnostu Trinirupani. And what this verse is telling is how Lord expands Mahas Shastra. First one is the Mahavishnu, then comes the Karnodakshay Vishnu, then comes the Garbhodakshay Vishnu, under Samsthita, and Tritiyam Sarvabhutanam Stham, Tani Jnatva Vimuchyate. That means who is that? The last one, who is a Shirodakshay Vishnu, who is all pervading super soul. That's what Narad Muni is saying, who is our Acharya himself, and that's here in the Narad Pancharatra. So here Lord is explaining, and if we see particularly the last purport of this verse, in the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, Earth, Fire, Earth, Water, Fire, and Sky, or we say ether as well, are called the 5 gigantic creations of the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. But the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. People are trying with this Manas Shastra, psychiatry, psychology, and all that. But they themselves are most of the times bewildered. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know, as Prabhupada is saying here, the ultimate source, Krishna, the false ego, source is Krishna, the false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called Mahat Tattva. Therefore, on the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy, which was the atheistic Muni was also Kapila Muni, but that Sankhya philosophy leads us towards the impersonalist atheistic ideas. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energy and are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. So going back to our verse today, here Arjun is remembering the Bhagavad Gita. He's remembering the instructions from the Bhagavad Gita. And what Prabhupada is explaining here is the 5 gross elements, 5 senses related to that, and the 3 subtle elements in mind, intelligence, and false ego needs to be used in the service of the Lord. And that's what Arjun is meditating on, because that's the crux of the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord says that the one verse which he emphasizes twice. What is that verse in Bhagavad Gita? Word by word, the first line is same. What is that verse? Anyone? It starts with Manmana. Manmana bho mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. So Lord is saying, just surrender unto me. So the beauty of that verse is, when people say that Lord is just or the God is nirgun, nirakar, nirvishesh type of whatever their weird description is. If Lord is saying man, he's talking about himself. In the Chatushloki Gita, the first verse, he says, Aham sarvasya prabhu. He's talking again about himself. He's not saying something within me. So that clearly indicates that he is the supreme personality and he is referring everything to himself. And that is the emphasis, and that's the relationship we were just talking about between Jivatma and the Supreme Lord. Without relationship, even the material world is void, it's useless. So spiritual world is full of relationships, and why it is so important. Anything else anyone would like to add or comment or contribute in this particular paragraph? Scriptural sound representation of the Lord, what is that? Is also the incarnation of the Lord. That means the name of the Lord. Nama nama kari bahuda nija sarva shaktis. Tatrarpita niyamitaha smaranena kalaha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it in Shikshashtakam. Nama nama akari bahuda. As our consciousness gets elevated, the name will reveal the form of the Lord, the qualities of the Lord, the completeness of the Lord. Lord will reveal when we chant the holy name in the perfect consciousness, in the elevated consciousness. So let's go ahead. It's already 8:30. So okay. So we will. This is a big paragraph. Who would like to read this? We may stop in between, and you can give your realizations when someone will read it. So who would like to read this, please? Any volunteer? It's for our own purification. So please do not hesitate when I am requesting someone to read it. Yes, Prabhuji, would you like to read?
Yes, please, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you.
The faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of Bhagavad Gita. And with this in view, the Lord instructed Arjuna as if Arjuna were in need of it. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to Supreme Lord, the living being, nature, time and space, and the process of activity. Out of these, the Supreme Lord and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel. Nature is inert matter displaying the interaction of 3 modes, and eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of material nature. Activities of the living beings are different varieties of aptitude which can entrap or liberate the living beings within and without material nature. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and later the subject matter are elaborated in the Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Yeah, just a moment. You can start from here once we just discuss a little bit. So these 5 elements, this is there elaborately explained by Prabhupada in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure you all have gone through many times through the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. So Supreme Lord is Ishvara. The living being is Jivatma. Nature is Prakriti. Time and space, Kala. And the process of activity is Karma. Right? So if we see this is actually the completeness of our existence in this world as well as in the spiritual world. Only thing in a pure form in a spiritual world, where time is absent, conspicuously absent.
And we will see that so Supreme Lord and the living beings. So that means what Prabhupada is saying, we are qualitatively one, but quantitatively he is infinite and we are infinitesimally small. What that means is there has to be a relationship, right, between Jivatma and Paramatma, between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. Then the nature, Prakriti, either it's the material nature or the spiritual nature. As in the 7th chapter, Lord explains that aparayamitaswanyam prakritim viddhime param. There is another world where bit of that world every living entity is part of. And that means the nature, whether it's a spiritual nature or spiritual Prakriti or material Prakriti, we are connected to either of it all the time. And time and space, where in material world, the time is Kala Chakra, which is continuous, Vedic time is not a linear time, it's a circular time. And the process of activity, the interaction, the relationship is a karma. In spiritual world, though there are pastimes, there is constant activity, but that is in a pure devotional service. Whereas here, we are subjected to different types of karma. Example, Vikarma, which is Ugra karma, not at all according to the scriptural injunctions. Second is Sakama karma, means as per the scriptural injunctions, and you are giving some part of it for the pious activities and some for fulfillment of the sense gratification as per the scriptural directions. And then the third one is Akarma, where everything is devoted to the devotional service. For example, when somebody is doing deity worship, there is no karmic reaction because the person is doing direct devotional service. So this is what explains the relationship, the sweetness of relationship. When there is a bitterness, that means there is no love. When there is a sweetness, that means there is a loving exchange. And that's what these 5 aspects are mentioned here. Nature is the inert matter, and this is in particularly with the material context. Yeah, anyone else would like to add or give any realizations, ideas here?
Prabhuji, if I'm not wrong, like I heard that it is over here the analogy of, like Prabhupada gave the analogy of gold particle and gold mine will go with in this paragraph, Prabhuji, because when I heard, I think that Prabhupada said that like we are part and parcel of the Supreme as a gold particle.
Yes.
Like are the part of a gold mine only, Prabhuji.
Yeah, very true. Thank you, Anji. Another analogy Prabhupada gives very similar to what you just said is the spark of fire and the big fire. So when the spark of that fire, tiny spark, when it is out of it, it's practically useless. It doesn't have that potency. But when you are connected to that fire, you have the complete quality of that fire. And you, of course, that's a material example, but for us to understand that. Yeah. Thank you. So yes, Prabhuji, you can start with this.
Out of the 5 subjects, the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature and time and space are eternal, but the living entity, nature and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any other control. The Supreme Lord is the supreme controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be reflected by transferal into the spiritual quality. Thus, it can seize its material qualitative reactions. Both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant, and both have the sense of identification of being conscious as a living force, but the living being under the condition of material nature called Mahatattva misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. When such an illusion is eradicated, By knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. The sense of enjoyment is the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. This difference in consciousness is the distinction of the two identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there is no difference between the Lord and the living being. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita stand on this principle. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, Prabhuji, anything you would like to add here? Give us some your thoughts on this.
Yeah, probably what I can think of out of this is that we as a living entity thinks that we are the absolute supreme and no one is bigger than us, and so all these things. That is why we entangle in this material world.
Yes.
The day we realize that we are nothing, we are just the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and then we start changing our consciousness, then that day will start our journey basically towards going back to Godhead. But again, to reach there, we need to be purified ourselves and take
Yes.
all the knowledge, whatever in Bhagavad Gita Krishna has given to Arjuna. We need to understand word by word before
Yes.
we even realize who we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was excellent. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts, or let's go?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my humble obeisances unto you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Here it says Lord and the living beings are kind of similar. Obviously, we are infinitesimal and Lord is infinite. But there can't be any comparison because Krishna is the source of material and spiritual. He is the creator of the spiritual and the material. But we are not the creator of either. We are not creator of material, or we are not creator of spiritual. We are just part and parcel of Krishna. So maybe qualitatively, like okay, we are eternal. That can be like we are eternal and we have individuality, but we cannot create material or spiritual. So we are nowhere. We can't compare ourselves with the Lord at all.
Yes, good question. Is that a question, or is that
Yeah,
a statement?
it's a question, because here somewhere Prabhuji just read that it's obviously achintya bheda means it's oneness and similar and difference, but similar, the only similarity maybe is because we are part and parcel of Krishna, the soul is eternal. But other than that, I mean, there is no comparison. I mean, Lord is, if you can, just by our tiny brain and intelligence, if you just imagine that, where we are, and the Lord is the creator of the world, the universe, all the things, all material and spiritual. He is the source of the material and the spiritual. We are not anything. We have not created the material or the spiritual. We cannot. So that's a question, actually. We are not at all from anywhere similar. Apart from that, we are part and parcel and we are eternal.
Good one. That's a very, very important and essential point. It's a big discussion. I will try to give some of my understandings in a few sentences, but it's a very long discussion actually. So the first point is, Lord is a person and we are also eternally a person. Our identity eternally is a personality. The difference is he is a Purusha and we are a Prakriti. Prakriti is always on the receiving end and Purusha is the acceptor. So creation wise, yes, we also have a propensity and we have a capacity to create, but unless and until we are connected with the Supreme Creator, we won't be able to create anything. And that is the qualitative similarity. Okay, that's first part. First qualitative similarity is we are personalities. Lord is a person and we are also eternally person. And that is in a Sanskrit, it is called Siddha Deha. When the consciousness gets awakened at the highest level, the person they get the understanding of their eternal entity or who that person is. If the Lord has name, form, qualities, everything, and if we are part and parcel of the Lord, achintya bhedavet tattva, we are separate, at the same time we are connected to him. That means we have the same qualities, and that means we have a tendency and the capacity to create, but only when we are connected with the Supreme Lord, our creation is meaningless, because that creation has to be in the mood of devotional service, in the mood of bhakti. Otherwise, that creation is what? Creating some, what do you call, adding some lines in the sand. That kind of creation is meaningless. So in the material creation is something similar to that. That's basically, it comes to it boils down to, does that give little bit of surface scratching to your question, Mataji, or you have something specific more to dig into?
I think that, like, as I said, it's like, okay, you're saying that, so when you say Lord is the Purusha and we are the Prakriti, so obviously because we are now in the material world, we are marginal because we are the eternal souls, as well as covered by the three modes of material nature. But when we are in the spiritual world, are we Prakriti, or because we have transcendental
Prakriti. No, we are eternally Prakriti. Only thing is, either we are with the potency of Yogamaya or Mahamaya. Yogamaya means in the spiritual potency, you are doing your service in the spiritual world, and that is with a complete consciousness. You are completely happy. So that's what Satchit Ananda. That's the consciousness in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha Lok. Here, it's exactly opposite. And as 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita says that everything is perverted here. And that's the difference. But yes, we are
Prakriti.
Yeah, we are Prakriti.
Okay,
and
so we can be Purush.
Yeah, and it's like we can say, if there is a big machine and it has lot of small parts, if one part or one kind of small nut or some kind of what do you call it? Yeah, it's some. If you scratch the surface of the machine and if some particles of that machine come out, is that machine getting affected? No. Machine will remain as it is. That will keep functioning. But if that particle is related to that machine, it is connected to or stuck to that machine, that particle has a meaning. As soon as that particle comes out, it is a garbage. It is a waste, right? So that's the difference. Unless and until we are connected to that Supreme Lord, our existence has no value. And in second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukdev Goswami makes a very bold statement. He says that if the soul is not connected to the super soul, the existence of that soul is meaningless. He says that in the second canto. It's a very beautiful verse, and Prabhupada gives a very powerful purport to that verse there. So that's what it boils down to. Does that, or you want to add something?
No, Prabhuji. Yes, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So yeah. But the living being under the condition of material nature called Mahat Tattva, and this part will come in the Sankhya Yoga, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, in second canto and in third canto, Kapila there, as well as in second canto, the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya Rishi, there also it is explained how the Mahat Tattva and the Pradhan, how that interaction is. And that's where in the purports, Srila Prabhupada gives the details of how living entity gets bewildered, thinking that, yes, I'm the Lord. And actually, in that, Maitreya Rishi is giving the details about Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma is glorifying the Lord, which comes in the third canto. So the whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to to the aim of eradicating such a misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. This is another fascinating part. I hope we don't have too much of time. Vedic literature, if we read Vedic literature properly, as per our consciousness, the same verse will reveal different meanings to it. So the person who has a material consciousness, but who wants to live a very pious, very controlled, proper, regulated life, for that person, the Vedic literature, the verses will give how to live that life properly. But if the person is a sadhu, if the person wants to live very renounced type of life and going back to Godhead, going to the path of liberation, the Vedic literature will give understanding, the correct understanding through the same verse for that person. The third person who is in a pure devotional service, for that person, how to serve the Lord will be made available. That will be revealed through the same Vedic literature. And that's the fascinating part of what Vedic wisdom is. I think the Upanishadic language we were talking about it comes to this because as our consciousness gets elevated, we get different revelations. So that's what this is. I think we have the last paragraph remaining. So who would like to read? And as I said, this is a wonderful opportunity to read, to meditate on the purports and Srimad Bhagavatam, because the verse Shrunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantastho Ya Abhadrani Vidhunoti Surutsatam. We chant that verse every time, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. This is the verse before that. And what that verse means is the words spoken directly by the Lord or about the Lord. So Srimad Bhagavatam is about the Lord, and Srimad Bhagavad Gita is directly spoken by the Lord. Shrunmatam Swakatha Krishna. Lord himself is talking. Punya Shravana Kirtana. And that is the ultimate pious activity anyone can think of. Punya Shravana Kirtana. Listening and reciting. Hridyantastho Ya Abhadrani. Hryd means your heart. Stha means which is stationed there, sitting there very firmly. Abhadra means which is rubbish, which is not good for the devotional service. All the kama, lust, anger, greed, and all that, shadripu we talk about. That gets washed away when we read and we hear and we discuss about the Lord. So that's why please do not hesitate and be a volunteer to read the purpose.
Can I read the purport, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, please do.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living beings are both described as Sanatan, or eternal, and the Lord's abode far beyond the material sky is also described as Sanatan. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatan existence of the Lord, and the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatan Dharma. One cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of the material identification, and the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called, in different stages, fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service, up to transcendental realization. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all the above items in relation with the Lord. Prescribed duties of the human being as directed in the Vedas can gradually purify the sinful mind of the conditioned soul and raise him to the stage of knowledge. The purified stage of acquiring knowledge becomes the basis of devotional service to the Lord. As long as one is engaged in researching the solution of the problems of life, his knowledge is called Gyan, or purified knowledge. But on realizing the actual solution of life, one becomes situated in the devotional service of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita begins with the problems of life by discriminating the soul from the elements of matter and proves by all reason and argument that the soul is indestructible in all circumstances, and that the outer covering of matter, the body and mind, change for another term of material existence, which is full of miseries. The Bhagavad Gita is therefore meant for terminating all different types of miseries, and Arjuna took shelter of this great knowledge, which had been imparted to him during the Kurukshetra battle. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, please give us some of your realizations, your reflections from this. It's a very, very powerful.
Yes.
Very.
Yeah, every sentence I think is very powerful. Every sentence was very meaningful. So it's talking about the stages. So first we have to, get rid of the misconception that we have, that we are attached to the body and the mind and the family we are born or the education we had. So we have so much attachment, and also the impressions from previous lives. So we have a kind of misconception about ourselves, that we are, this whatever we are in the world. I'm Indian, I'm American, I'm girl, I'm boy, I'm this, I'm that, rich, poor, whatever. So that has to go first.
Yeah.
So it's first stage. Then we, with knowledge and then we have the knowledge, and with the knowledge we do devotional service, which is because our existence is actually with Krishna in the Sanatan sky, in the Sanatan world. So there Krishna is inviting us to be, there again with Krishna and serving Krishna. So first we have to forget what we are here.
Yes.
And then identify with the soul and not the body and the mind. That's what it's saying, that you have to stage by stage, you have to do that.
Yes.
And then those who are pure devotees, they don't think themselves as material body or mind, or they are pure. They are doing pure devotional service with full knowledge, and just like they would do service in spiritual sky, they are doing it here. So they are completely liberated. So
Yes.
that's what I'm saying.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That
Thank
was
you.
wonderful. So Sanatan means eternal, and the famous verse from the 10th chapter of after Chatushloka Gita is Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Majam Vibham. So Param means topmost, the supreme, nothing higher than that. Param Brahma, that's Lord himself. Param Dhama, Arjuna is saying this. The supreme abode is Lord himself. Pavitram Paramam, supremely divine. There is nothing more divine. The supremely divine is Lord himself. Pavitra Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, and Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, and who holds all the six opulences. Then what comes is Purusham Shashvatam Divyam. Shashvat means Sanatan, is the same, the synonymous term. Shashvata Purush, Sanatana Purush, who is that? The Supreme Lord himself, Krishna. Purusham Shashvatam Divyam. So to understand that Divya, who that Lord is, you can't use your own logic to understand God, who is infinite, very smiley, tiny, small, infinitesimally small spark. Can he understand the Vibhu? There is no way. So Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, that logical understanding is not possible. It's only by the devotional service, only by the mercy, which is a deductive knowledge, which is coming from top to the bottom. Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adi Deva means that he is the first personality to whom everyone is connected to. Adi Devam Majam Vibhum. But Ajam means beyond. We talk about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ajanulam Vitabhujo Kanakavadhato. Ajam means beyond. And Adidevam, Ajam Vibhum means our whole concept of Vibhu, which is infinite, he is even beyond that. That's what Arjuna is saying here in the Bhagavad Gita. And this verse is telling us about the Sanatan Dharma. Yeah. one cannot, however, reach the eternal abode of the Lord without being free from the misconception of material identification. So that means what is the spiritual identification? Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that. God himself is saying that. And when we have that, that means Krishnera Nityadas. That means we are connected to our master, to our Lord. And the Bhagavad Gita gives us the clue how to achieve this stage of perfection. The extent, or we can say this law book is practical reasons. It is given to us by Rupa Goswami as per the instructions of the Supreme Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is what? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That's where Lord gives the instructions about the stages of devotional service, 64 limbs of devotional service and everything. So that's the commentary, or that's given by our Acharyas himself, and that's the famous word Anya Bilashta Shunyam that comes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The process of being liberated from the misconception of material identification is called in different stages fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and devotional service up to transcendental realization. And that is the last stage. Such transcendental realization is made possible by dovetailing all the above items in relation with the Lord. So every activity we do, every philosophical speculation we do, or we have, people have that tendency, if that is connected to the Lord, it will get revealed within our heart, because Lord is Chaitya Guru as well, and externally by our spiritual master and our acharyas. Prescribed duties of human being as directed in the Vedas can gradually purify the sinful mind of conditioned soul. So as Mataji was reading that, something occurred to me. Those who are from IT, and nowadays everyone knows, what is the formatting of the hard disk. So all the unnecessary material contaminations in our hard disk needs to be washed out. And that is the conditioning we have. And that is the stage of knowledge. We'll go through a couple of verses just now, and let's see. I think we don't have time now, but we'll try. So this is what I think. If we go through, then we won't be able to go through those verses. So in the 4th chapter, if we see the 38th verse, that is, Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitram iha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmanivindati. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. And it's a very, very powerful, very beautiful verse to meditate on. And what this knowledge, the explanation is given further in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. So if we go back, and then there is another verse, which is self-realization. Some yogis perfectly worship. We are not talking about the demigods part here. And this is the 40th verse that talks about the let's. So here Lord is saying the other side, but the ignorant and the faithless person who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmantam na karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of his actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, he is not bound to the reactions of birth. O conqueror of riches. So I thought these are all some of these verses are relevant to what we are discussing now. So let's stop here. Are there any questions or comments or some ideas. Anything additions? Yeah. We'll stop here. If there are no questions, and there is a lot to discuss in this particular because it is all about Bhagavad Gita, and coming in Bhagavatam, Arjun, who is the receiver of the Bhagavad Gita, has stated this, the eternal knowledge, the eternal science of Bhagavad Gita. And that's why this was a very, very wonderful verse to meditate on. And as Arjun confirms, he says that in Bhagavad Gita, his name is Achyuta. He has affection for his devotees, which never fails. And he never fails in his affection for his devotees. In the battlefield, Arjun's army and his overall strength was weaker than Kaurava's, but just because of his devotional complete surrender, they were totally victorious. So that's, I think we'll stop here. Otherwise, I will keep talking. Sorry.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I have one question. It's like a
Yes.
question. So here, obviously, it's talking about it's like a summary of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's like a shortened form of what is in the Bhagavad Gita and what is the process and it's like that.
Yeah.
So we can understand the relationship of the Lord with us, like we are the eternal servant of Krishna. So
Yeah.
if we understand this one, then when Lord Chaitanya came, he wanted Sankirtana movement. So Sankirtan means together. So it is also very important that all the souls, though we are all different, we are all different individuals, even materially or even in spiritual life, and sometimes because we have studied different subjects, or we think differently. So so one verse can be, as you said, one verse can be understood by different level of consciousness in different ways. So
Yes.
like that, within devotees as well, we can have kind of maybe what you are understanding, maybe I'm not getting it, something like that, it can happen. So it is very important that we do devotional service cooperatively, because Sankirtan is that. So that aspect is also very important. So I was thinking like that.
Absolutely. Very, very, very important point. So His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj says that if we read the commentaries from various acharyas, sometimes if our consciousness is not pure enough, we will find there is contradiction. But when the consciousness is elevated enough, we will find it like it's like one song. If you can sing in different tunes, and every tune is very melodious, very beautifully sung song in every tune, will that be something irritating? It will be nice, right? There is no contradiction. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is one of our super intellectual Madhurya Rasa Acharya. He has written a commentary on Bhagavad Gita, Sarartha Varshini Tika. Baldev Vidyabhushan has written the commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and then Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada has written his commentary on Bhagavad Gita, but at the same time, there is a beautiful harmony. If we read all the commentaries on Bhagavad Gita of all our acharyas, and what we will hear is a beautiful, harmonious music through to our ears, because that will be so relishable. So there is, yes, as per our consciousness, we will have different revelations, because that's the relationship, that's the sambandha jnana with the Supreme Lord. And yes, thank you, Mataji, for bringing that point. Only thing is, as you correctly pointed out, we have to associate with devotees, churn, discuss, and relish this transcendental science and Krishna Katha, rather than relishing something else. Yeah.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So if there are no other questions, we will stop here. Thank you very much, everybody. I would definitely encourage everyone and request everyone to participate, to speak, because this is for our own purification, and that will help us to interact more and understand each other's thought process. So thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti vaishnavendati jaya.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Stop sharing.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jyoti Mataji, I will leave the.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.